That glass band running the entire length of this thing, that's not a window. That's a statement. Whoever sat down and imagined this concept wasn't thinking about campgrounds. They were thinking about penthouses. They were thinking about what it would feel like to wake up at altitude, 13 feet off the ground, with an uninterrupted view of whatever landscape you parked in front of the night before. And somehow, they put that feeling on wheels. Now, before we go any further, I want to be upfront about something, the way I always am on this channel. What you're looking at is an AI-generated concept design. It doesn't exist in any factory. No one's building it, no one's selling it, there's no order form, there's no delivery date. It's pure imagination. And honestly, that's exactly why it deserves a serious breakdown, because when a designer has zero real-world limitations, zero board approvals, zero cost constraints, what they choose to prioritize tells you everything about where luxury mobility is actually headed. So here's what we're doing today. Full walk around front to rear. Then we're going inside, and I'm going to walk you through what I believe is almost certainly happening in that interior based on everything the exterior is telling us. Then powertrain logic, and then my honest verdict. And stay with me, because there is one design decision on the lower rear section of this vehicle that I genuinely haven't seen executed quite like this anywhere else, and I'm saving that for when we get there. Let's go. All right, let's start right here at the front, because the front face of any vehicle is its handshake. It's the first thing that tells you what kind of vehicle this is trying to be, and more importantly, what kind of person it was designed for. And this front face, this is not trying to be an RV. The wraparound windshield treatment is low and wide, almost architecturally flush with the body panels flanking it. There's no chrome waterfall grille, no aggressive A-pillar framing, just this clean, continuous surface that sweeps from one side to the other like the nose of a private aircraft. The integrated lighting strip across the lower bumper section is slim and surgical. It doesn't shout, it glows. There's a confidence in restraint here that most luxury vehicle designers spend years trying to learn. The front bumper has a subtle lip that follows the same horizontal logic as everything above it. It's culling your eye left to right, not up and down, and that's intentional. In a vehicle this tall, you want the design language to visually flatten the proportions, to make it feel lower and wider than it actually is. This concept absolutely achieves that. Now let's walk the side profile, because this is where this concept either lives or dies. And it lives, comfortably. The roofline is flat, almost perfectly flat, which sounds boring until you realize what it does for the interior, and we'll get to that. Along the habitable section, you have this continuous glass band that runs almost the full length of the living space. I want you to think about what that means for a moment, not just aesthetically, but experientially. If you're inside that vehicle and those windows track the full length of the cabin, you are essentially living inside a glass-walled room that happens to move. The distinction between vehicle and home starts to dissolve in a way that most motorhomes never even attempt. The body surface below that glass band is smooth and intentional, almost sculptural in its blankness, but not lazy blankness, the kind of blankness that communicates control. The white finish, and I want to come back to this in a moment, is doing something very specific with light. In this showroom environment, you can see it catching the overhead lighting across the lower panels in a way that makes the surface feel almost liquid. In natural daylight, particularly at golden hour, a finish like this would be extraordinary. The vehicle would look different every hour of the day depending on where the sun is. That's not an accident. The blacked-out graphic treatment that bridges the glass band to the body below it creates a visual separation that splits the vehicle into two distinct design zones, the glass and life zone above and the mechanical and power zone below. It's a design move borrowed from luxury coach architecture and yacht superstructure design. It gives the vehicle a layered identity. Now, the wheels and stance. Look at this. Triple axle configuration visible from this angle, with what appear to be large diameter polished alloy wheels running staggered across the rear axle set. In a concept of this scale, and based on the proportions here, we're likely looking at something in the 13 to 14 meter range. That wheel configuration isn't just structural, it's communicating that this thing is planted, serious, capable of carrying real weight with real stability. The low profile of the tire relative to the wheel diameter gives it a surprisingly car-like stance for something this massive. That takes serious design confidence to pull off on a vehicle this tall. The lower body skirting connects front to rear without interruption, and that creates an aerodynamic floor channel effect. In a real-world build scenario, that kind of underbody management would meaningfully reduce the drag penalty that comes with a front-fronted vehicle this size. It's not just styling. That kind of continuous sill line is actively working to manage airflow, and at highway speeds on a vehicle this heavy, that translates directly into efficiency, into range, into money you're not spending at the fuel pump. Now let's talk about the rear, and this is the detail I mentioned at the top, so stay right here with me. The rear section of this concept has a treatment that I want to examine carefully. The way the lower section closes out the body with what appears to be a structured panel arrangement below the main living floor suggests significant underfloor volume, and in concepts at this scale, that real estate is almost always allocated for one of two things, either a compressed mechanical bay or a garage bay. I'll tell you exactly what I think is happening back there when we get to the interior section. The rear lighting is integrated flush into the panel work. No protruding lens housings, no chrome surrounds, just clean light. Minimal. Confident. The exterior alone makes this one of the more compelling concepts I've analyzed in a long time. But honestly, the exterior is the easy part. What I think is happening inside this vehicle is where this gets genuinely interesting, and I don't use that word lightly.
All right, now I want to be transparent about something before we go inside. This is a concept. It's AI generated. It's not a real vehicle, so we don't have access to an interior walkthrough. What we're about to do is something I genuinely enjoy. We're going to work backwards from every exterior signal this concept is giving us and construct what the interior almost certainly looks like. Think of it as design detective work. Here's what the exterior has already told us. We have a flat roofline, we have full-length glass along the habitable section, we have what appears to be significant underfloor volume at the rear, and the overall proportions suggest a living deck that sits well above road level, somewhere around 5 to 6 feet off the ground. That elevated living floor is one of the most underappreciated features in high-end motorhome design, and here's why. It creates a hidden floor cavity beneath the living space that can house your mechanical systems, your batteries, your water storage, your pneumatic systems, all of it buried below your feet rather than competing with your living space. That's the difference between a motorhome that feels like a vehicle and one that feels like a home. Let's step through the door. Based on the entry position visible on the side elevation, the main door is positioned roughly at the 1/3 point of the habitable section, which is classic in this category. It puts you immediately into the social zone of the vehicle, rather than walking through a bedroom or kitchen corridor first. Smart. The living area. With a glass band of this height and length, the living area of this concept would be defined by natural light in a way that most motorhomes simply cannot replicate. If the ceiling height aligns with what the exterior roofline suggests, and I think it does, we're looking at something close to full stand-up height throughout the entire cabin. Not crouching, not angling, just walking around your home. In a vehicle this size, that single detail is the difference between feeling like you're staying somewhere and feeling like you're camping. It changes everything about the daily experience. I'd expect the living zone to feature a convertible seating and dining configuration, modular furniture that shifts between lounge, dining, and sleeping modes. The glass band at this height almost demands a furniture arrangement oriented toward the windows. You don't put a wall against a view like that, you put a sofa. The kitchen. Based on the slide-out geometry visible on the exterior, and there appears to be at least one significant slide-out along the passenger side, the kitchen would most likely occupy the rear-facing section of the main living area. In a concept with this level of design ambition, I'd expect integrated appliance panel work, meaning the fridge, the oven, and the cooktop are all flush-mounted behind matching cabinetry. No exposed appliance faces, no visible brand logos, just continuous surface. That's the yacht approach to kitchen design, and given the visual language of this exterior, I'm very confident that influence carries inside. Pop-up faucets, induction cooking, probably a concealed dishwasher drawer because at this price point, even conceptually, you simply don't do dishes by hand. Now let's move toward the rear, toward the sleeping section. And this is where the design logic gets particularly interesting. The transition from the social zone to the private zone in a motorhome of this scale is almost always handled with some kind of architectural divider, a pocket door, a sliding partition, something that psychologically separates your bedroom from your living room. Based on the overall proportion of the habitable section, I'd estimate the sleeping zone occupies roughly the rear third of the living deck. That puts it directly above or adjacent to whatever's happening in that underfloor rear volume. The bedroom in a concept with this glass philosophy would almost certainly maintain the window line through to the rear. Waking up in a room where natural light comes through windows that are physically heated so there's no cold glass pulling warmth away from you, that's a detail that sounds minor until your first cold weather morning in a traditional motorhome. Then you understand it immediately. I'd expect a queen or king format fixed bed, not a fold down, not a conversion, fixed, because a concept at this level of ambition doesn't make you set up your bedroom every night. Storage beneath and surrounding the bed, integrated into the millwork rather than bolted on afterward. The bathroom. This one is straightforward from the exterior logic. There's enough volume here for a full wet bath, meaning separate shower enclosure, not a wet room where the toilet gets soaked every time you shower. Walk-in shower with a rainfall head, a properly sized vanity, towel warming, possibly an infrared element, and somewhere in that rear zone, I'd expect a washer-dryer stack, because if you're living in this thing full-time, laundry is not optional. Now, the rear volume, the underfloor bay I mentioned. Based on the height of the lower skirting section and the depth of the rear panel treatment, I believe this concept is imagining a rear garage bay. Not a massive one, not full SUV scale, but enough for a compact city vehicle, maybe an electric microcar, maybe an e-bike setup, maybe a pair of electric scooters and serious gear storage. The logic is this. A vehicle of this scale can't go everywhere you want to go, but if it carries the vehicle that can, suddenly you're not tethered to the parking lot anymore. You park on the outskirts and deploy. That's not a luxury detail, that's a freedom detail, and it's brilliant. The cockpit. Positioned high above the road surface with that low, wide windshield giving exceptional forward visibility, I'd expect a full digital instrument cluster, dual display screens for navigation and camera feeds, and given the length of the concept, likely a rear and side camera system replacing traditional mirrors. The driver's chair would be fully adjustable, heated, ventilated, probably with some form of active suspension isolation, so the seat itself absorbs road imperfection before it reaches your spine. In a near-future production scenario, you'd also be looking at some level of lane keeping and adaptive cruise, not full autonomy, but driver assistance that makes a 14-meter vehicle feel significantly less intimidating on a long highway run. And that, combined with what we've explored on the exterior, is what I believe this concept is proposing. Now let's talk about what would actually have to exist to make it move. Here's the honest engineering reality of a vehicle this size. This is big. We're talking potentially 20 to 26 tons at full load, with everything aboard including a garage vehicle. That's real mass. And the question that always comes up with large concept vehicles like this is what's moving it? Now, in a purely fictional concept, the designer can say electric and leave it there. But I don't find that interesting, and I don't think you do either. So let's actually work through what would be required to make this thing genuinely viable. If this were engineered for reality in a near-future scenario, the most likely propulsion path would be a hybrid architecture, not pure electric, not pure diesel, but a sophisticated dual system. A large diesel prime mover for highway cruising and sustained power delivery, paired with a battery buffer that handles urban, low-speed, and campsite operation. Think of it like the logic that heavy marine vessels use: combustion for range and sustained load, electric for efficiency and silence at anchorage. The battery system, and this is where it gets genuinely forward-looking, would need to be substantial. Based on the exterior geometry, there appears to be significant underfloor volume accessible along the sill section, and that is exactly where you want your battery mass, low and centered. It keeps the center of gravity down on a vehicle that is already quite tall, and that has real, measurable impact on handling stability at speed. That's not just engineering for efficiency, that's engineering for safety. The roof. Look at the roof section on this concept. That flat, continuous roofline is not just aesthetically motivated, it's a solar surface. In a concept with this much flat real estate above the living deck, I'd expect a high-efficiency solar panel integration, not bolted-on panels, but flush embedded cells that are visually indistinguishable from the roof surface itself. In a real-world build scenario, the technology to do this at high efficiency is available right now. Flexible monocrystalline panels embedded in a composite sandwich panel roof. At the scale of this roofline, you could realistically generate enough daily solar harvest to power all your onboard systems: lighting, climate, appliances, all of it without touching your primary fuel reserve. Off-grid autonomy? In the world of this concept, I'd estimate 5 to 7 days of comfortable stationary living from combined battery and solar resources before you'd need to connect to shore power or run a generator. That's genuinely meaningful. That's the difference between a campsite tether and real independence. The generator, because you always have one at this scale, would be a diesel unit, fully soundproofed, auto-start triggered by battery threshold. You'd never manually start it. The system would decide when you need it and handle it invisibly. That's how the best motorhomes in the world operate right now, and this concept appears to be imagining that same logic at higher scale. The tech stack, and this is where I'll keep it brief because we could do a whole video just on this, would almost certainly include a centralized smart home control system: lighting, climate, slide-out deployment, on-in management, camera feeds, energy monitoring, all accessible from a single touchscreen panel, probably also mirrored to a mobile app so you can monitor and adjust systems while you're outside the vehicle. The bones of this technology exist today, which is part of what makes concepts like this so compelling rather than purely fantastical. All right, my honest take. What this concept does genuinely well, and I want to start here because this is important, is coherence.
The design has a philosophy. It's not a collection of impressive features bolted together. It's a statement about what mobile living could feel like if someone actually cared about the full experience.